Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. Welcome to our Wednesday Facebook Live. It is November the 16th, 1 week before Thanksgiving. So hope everyone is preparing for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the US. Let me go ahead and welcome our panel. We have, after a very, very long time, April, in spite of having had some surgery, April is back. And April is a psychic and has quite a few modalities of healing under her, like massage therapy, Reiki. So welcome, April. Good to have you back. And then we have Patricia here. Good evening, Patricia, who is a part of our core group of meditators, and Ken, who is part of a core group of meditators, and Dennis, who has been joining lately. Dennis is somebody that Ken knows, so they're friends. And I will pick out the question. Let me find the question. I tend to email that question to myself, and I seem to have lost the question. Okay, I think I kind of remember what the question was about. So somebody, and I'm not going to, just to keep the anonymity, I'm just not going to say who it is, but a group member asked that, so a couple of weeks back, we were talking about how do we judge other people's ego, or people judge each other's ego, if you'll remember. And then following up on that, the group member asked that, how does forgiveness work under the case of abuse? What is forgiveness? And how do we work forgiveness if we feel that whatever this life situation is, the life situation has been abusive? So you want to talk about that, April? I think it's more around what is forgiveness, right? And I will tag everyone on once they come online.
So forgiveness, I'll just start with it and then everybody else can add in. In order to actually have forgiveness, there has to forgiveness and healing go hand in hand. But one of the primary components of forgiveness is learning to take yourself out of the equation. So many people who have suffered abuse, they tend to think there's something wrong with them, or they did something, or they weren't worthy, or somehow they deserved this abuse. So normally that's what I find with almost every person that I work with. So one of the first steps is to realize that it was never really you in the first place. It was whoever this abuser was, they had something broken within them. And for me in my life, and one of the things I do teach daily, but it was also a huge component in my life, was bringing in the element of unconditional love and compassion. I could have compassion for my dad because I could understand what he went through as a child. I could understand the pattern. I knew what he went through. I could see that he was a wounded soul, and he was just acting off of what he knew. So this goes back to one of my favorite quotes of, forgive them for they know not what they do. That's one that I bring up often, because you really have to consider that person's teachings, their understanding, their level of consciousness, which directs one's behaviors. All of us on this panel, I'm sure at one point, did things in our lives that perhaps we weren't so proud of, or maybe it wasn't the nicest thing, but once you start this journey and your consciousness expands, we stopped acting in those manners. So that is the first step for me. The first step is, one, to understand it was really never about you, that it wasn't because you were bad, you weren't tall enough, you weren't smart enough, you weren't fast enough, you weren't good enough. And then adding in the element of love and compassion for the other person. It's like the namaste, or being able to see the soul in the other person, not just the costume that they're wearing. So that's where I would start with that.
So one of the things that, since I've been doing these 10-minute, less than 10-minute videos on tip of the day kind of thing. And I started off with Dr. Joe Dispenza talking about how we think and how we feel creates a state of being. And then we are always co-creating our personal reality, right?
Mhm.
So we may think that, yeah, the other person, and you may be able to explain this much more better than anyone else can, April, because you talk about soul and soul contracts. That lesson that we got, like the example I gave in one of the 10-minute videos was, I know when I look at the 3-year-old me, or the 4-year-old me, and the 5-year-old me, and the 6, 7, 8-year-old me, I resented, and I had so much hatred for my mom's verbal and physical abuse. And I know the point of attraction, since we talk about point of attraction, the vibrational energy that I was sending her was that hatred. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That is true.
we come to when we and this is the wisdom. One of the things that Dr. Joe does is when you do tuning into new potentials, there are a couple of meditations. At the very end of the meditation, he says, put your hand on your heart. And he goes through quite a few things, but then the one thing he says is, bless your past for its wisdom. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I bless that past because I know, and that abuse didn't end up just my mother. It was like other people in the family. I found other family members. If it wasn't my mother, I moved away from my mother, it was somebody else in the family. If it wasn't that, then it was a manager at work. If it wasn't the manager at work, there was actually a sexual harassment at work, right? Until I forgave. And that's why this forgiveness, when I had that sexual harassment in, that was in 2006, 2005, 2006. I don't know what happened to me. I was not spiritually awakened, but some kind of awareness grew. I was actually going through a divorce, a separation. So some kind of awareness grew that this person I need to forgive. Like I need to delete all the emails. I need to, there's somebody that has, I need to delete all their emails. I need to delete all their instant messages. I need to delete everything. Because if I have those things, then they could be, the urge can be there, right? People, what does the society say? If you go talk to a friend or go talk to another coworker, hey, you need to go talk to HR, and this is a Fortune 100 company, you need to go sue them, right? That's what they would say. So I made sure that I didn't have any weapons, ammunition, so that even that desire wouldn't arise. I was that particular about that forgiveness. And this was like pure sexual harassment, right? If you look at the instant messages and if you look at the emails, it would purely be like obvious. So I feel that is the point of attraction. It's not just, oh, the other person, yeah, the other person was acting their patterns. That is for sure. My mom's mother was like my grandmother. Oh my God, you couldn't even talk around her. She was so militaristic. Anger all the time. Like she would like, her thing was, don't enter the houses with shoes on. Don't do this, don't do that. do this, do that. Like even when we were like 5, 6 years old, visiting our grandmother, it was like, sit down, don't sit like that, sit straight, do this, do that. Why did you do that? Right? Constant. So you were constantly being terrorized, like not being that loving grandmother's house. Oh, I'm so full of love in this grandmother's house. It was like, what time, like what time bomb is going to go off when, right? What are you going to do wrong next? That this time bomb, even on my mother was that way, then superimpose a grandmother that was that way. So I kind of know why my mother, just like what you were saying, right? I exactly know why my mother was that way, right?
Yeah.
Because her mother was that way. So
Yeah,
you
that's
want to
the
talk about
pattern.
that? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so that's the
Thank you.
pattern and that's the conditioning. But what you're talking about is, and I believe it's true. And the way I describe this to people that I work with, and not everybody that I work with is, on this journey like we are. So I try to explain that to them in a way. So everything is energy, and your body is composed of energy layers. And when you have this inner belief that I need to be angry, I should do something, I should react, I'm the victim, people always do this to me. This literally becomes that energy signature, right? That surrounds you and gets projected out. So when I've heard this saying, do I have a sign on my head that says, come abuse me? Yes, you do. It's blinking very bright. You do. They don't understand that it's their energy signature that's being sent out because they're in that energy space. So that will attract those scenarios, those type of people. When you have not forgiven, when you have not fully learned what you need to learn out of the environment, out of the situation, you will continue to recreate that scenario, whether it's with the boss, the neighbor, even your animal, it doesn't matter. Once you learn that lesson, and then you do forgive, you yourself have a different energy, then you will quit putting out that signature. You will attract different situations, different people. So it's literally your energy signature, which is in there. And then, so I said before that, while I'm a psychic medium, I talk to people on the other side, done that for years. When my mom died, I started really studying the NDEs, and a couple of them, when they talk about the life review, which we're not judged on, they said that you will see, one of the things you will see is how your energy affected others. And then one of them in particular said, this lady had an issue with another lady at work. So she had all these hateful thoughts, but she had them all in her head. And Source said to her, all that energy you had in your head went to her. She still got that energy because you're putting it in the energy field. So you needed to heal it with you so that you would stop sending her that negative energy. Not that it's your fault, right? So also the other part of what you're saying is, I don't want to be that person projecting and continuing that energy stream, that energy pattern.
Perfect. Yes. And so I consider it like, and that is what the life situation of abuse has given us, is this opportunity to spiritually grow, right? And to reflect back and say, oh, that was part of my soul contract. I had it within me. I had that resentment and hatred within me that I needed to heal, which I healed when this happened in 2006. They are unrelated, right? Those two events. Like this person was different than my mother. It's not like I did any forgiveness practice towards my mother, but this act of forgiving this one person, my mother hadn't been speaking to me like for 4 or 5 years, and she like suddenly my brother called and said, oh, your mom wants you to come to India, she wants you to come visit. So I immediately went in 2009, right? So
Yeah. I think once you get on this journey too, and you really want to start healing. So basically, like Eckhart says, when the suffering has become enough, and you allow that space of healing and forgiveness to take place, then you can see all of these events, you can link them, and you can see the purpose in all of them.
mhm.
Oh, I can see now why my dad was this way, and this is what I got out of. I can see now why my mom, and how it has helped to evolve you as a soul. You can see that. Yeah.
Perfect. Incredible. Thank you so much, April, for the wisdom. And I wanted to just quote what Lakshmi posted. She said, and this is something that Dr. Wayne Dyer has also quoted quite a few times. He says, forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Mark Twain said that. So you're good, April? Thank you. Caesar, did you want to say something about this? Did you read the whole question?
So all I seen was the short, how does one work on forgiveness if we think we have a life situation that's abusive?
That's correct. Yes,
Okay.
that was the question.
So
Thank you.
yeah, so one word, choice. You got to make the decision, make the choice to want that. And the three things available to us in any situation is change the situation if we can change it, remove yourself from it, or fully accept it as it is, as though you chose it. You have to want that peace that comes by way of forgiveness. Like I caught what April was saying. Yeah, I totally agree. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're in that situation and it's like a current situation, if we think we have a life situation that's abusive, okay. Well, again, you change it if you can change it, you remove yourself. Other than that, don't complain about it and fully accept it as it is. But if it's abusive, it would be time to go, I would imagine. To stick around in something like that would be nonsense. And then, I mean, I guess it depends on the situation, of course. If the person's a child and can't leave, then, that's something different. But, and what kind of abuse is it? Is it physical abuse? I guess it doesn't matter.
Adult. It's an adult.
Okay, is it verbal or physical? Or I guess it really don't matter, does it? Abuse is abuse, and it doesn't feel good. And I think it starts with forgiveness of yourself, that this is happening. It's full acceptance that this is happening. This is the isness. I think once that decision is made and you are aware of that, I think the will to go or change it would be dominant over sticking around and accepting it as it is. But again, I think it starts inside with yourself, to forgive yourself. And I'm not saying that in terms of you did anything wrong, like deservingly. Forgive yourself for sticking around longer than you did. Or forgive yourself for not forgiving them or the situation or accepting it as it is. Forgiveness goes a long way. I mean, it's just another side of the coin of acceptance. Yes. So again, one would just have to make the decision to want that peace, because that's what forgiveness offers at the end of the day, is peace. Again, it's just another side of the acceptance coin, really. And we know that what we resist will cause pain and suffering. acceptance is the answer there. It allows us freedom, allows us to be liberated from a situation like this. And once that happens, obviously, that will take you to the next moment. But the acceptance of the fact that it is what it is and that has happened doesn't mean you need to allow it to continue. When I say accept the isness of it, but that would lead you to the next lesson. So it's pretty much all I got there.
Thank you so much, Caesar. Amazing. So change it, leave, or accept the life situation that it is as it is. When you paused into what kind of abusive, the thought arose in my mind, is this situation actually abusive? Or is it a story or narrative that we are applying on the situation and saying it is abusive, and now we are torturing? We have a heavy pain body, right? And our pain body is using that label, oh, this is abusive, and creating a narrative and creating this cycle of pain and tears coming and more pain, right? And we are like sobbing or curled up in the bed and laying in the bed for days on end, thinking of this situation and saying it is abusive, but it may not be abusive. It is what it is.
And that was my thoughts exactly. When you just pointed that out, my thought was in saying that was also the same, what you just expressed. Maybe this person is abusive to themselves and they're blaming it on other people to create the situation, the perspective of what it is. Yeah, perfect.
Beautiful. So the tip here would be is look at the what Eckhart would say, look at the clear facts of the situation, exactly how it happened. Don't add emotions, don't add a narrative, don't add drama. The ego loves drama. The pain body loves drama. Don't add drama. And don't add anything what the society does. Don't add the societal ways of how the society would interpret the situation. Just look at the pure facts of the situation as it is, right? And then know, okay, whatever, this person lied to me, or this person robbed me, or this person cheated me, whatever the abuse may be, that is all it is. Like Eckhart, in one of his videos, he says, when people get separated, like in a marriage relationship, like one person divorces or separates the other person, Eckhart says, no, that person just got up and left. That is the fact of the situation. Now, the narrative that we add is, oh, this person was so mean to me. He never took out the trash. He never helped me with my kids. And he never cleaned the kitchen. He never cooked for me. He never baked cakes for me. He never bought me flowers. All that is drama. Right? And what we should do is not have the drama added, add all the spices, the chili pepper, the cayenne pepper, and all that we add to the life situation, right? All the cardamom and cinnamon, and we've spiced it up, and now it has become balloon. Like, no, your husband or wife got up and left, right? Or your partner got up and left. That is this life situation, accept it. That's what you're saying, right? Beautiful. Thank you so much, Caesar. Always, April and Caesar. I think that energy field is like beautiful when you'll do a back-to-back. It's like bam, bam, out of the park. Thank you. Francesca, since you have a weird internet connection, you want to quickly say something? Thank you.
Sure. Hi.
Can you guys hear me?
Don't worry,
It's a bit noisy in the background, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
I've
you.
moved out of the cafe, so I'm just sitting here at the school. Okay, okay. Hi, guys. Wow, this is a topic I could probably speak a whole book on. This topic is my life, and basically the foundation of my own inner work journey from my head to my heart. Um, and for me, the very foundation of forgiveness is understanding. Understanding gives rise to empathy, empathy for the perpetrator or whoever it is that's doing this action towards you. And then empathy naturally gives rise to compassion. And comes, it's all the whole process of unconditional love when I think of it. So in order to experience that depth of understanding in this specific area, because my background is unfortunately, I was abused by both my parents. Um, my dad sexually, and my mom physically, horrifically, actually, and then lots of men when I was younger, and then my whole life, actually, all the men that I choose to be in relationships with were also abusive. Every single one, everyone except in one of them, right? And so this is something that has weaved itself, through my entire life from childhood. And I remember when I received the download 9 years ago when I was living in a homeless shelter for women and children, because of my abusive situation that led me, I had to make a choice to leave, right? So I left everything behind and I moved into the shelter with me and my daughter. She was 2 at the time, and I received the download that I needed to build a healing center for men and offer the services for free because um, I needed to teach them the importance of, help them to understand what exactly is abuse, why these behaviors are happening, and so forth. And I remember thinking, my God, it means I have to walk away from the corporate world, and now I've got to figure out how to do this in order to even build this healing center for men. It means I need to figure out every man in my life that has done something to me that was abusive. I was like, this is the only way I can authentically create something, so that when, in order for the men to even open the door and walk in, let's say to this healing center, they can feel my heart and know for sure 100% they can feel that I have no anything that's against them, and that I'm truly, truly dedicated to helping, to serving them, and to help, build this unity of understanding between us. And that was literally my prayer. And I said, God, you need to help me figure out how I'm going to forgive every single person. And it was very quickly through meditation, actually. I was, sitting one day, I remember I was meditating, and a question arose. What is it that, that must have happened to my dad in his life that made him choose to do what he did? That was my question. Then I started asking that question for every single man that has ever, done something in that regards. And asking that question was like opening a Pandora, the most beautiful Pandora box, because I started journaling, oh my goodness. Well, I reflect. So what I did was I put myself in their shoes from the stories that I've heard, and I've heard about how they grew up, how they were treated, the belief system that they were raised under, and so forth. And by the time I was finished going through every single person that I knew that does this and their journey, I was crying for all of those guys, my dad, everybody. I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, oh my God, I actually felt compassion. I felt sorry for them. Like I felt empathy. I was like, oh my goodness, like, this choice is coming not even from them being present, right? It's coming from a state of consciousness that, that was shaped as a result of their experiences in life, right? And so it's so interesting how synchronicities happen, because yesterday I was actually watching a documentary A friend sent it to me, and it's a documentary about pedophilia. And it's about, and so they interviewed the person who did it to the children, then they interviewed the two sisters whom this happened to, and then, and then they also interviewed the mom and as well as the counselors. So there was, 4 different views, extremely deep views of the story, hearing it from everybody's perspective. And, it's why I resonate with, a lot of what April said, because these are things that when it comes to this topic, it's not talked about because it's very deep. It could be very triggering for women and for people involved, depending on their level of readiness to hear it and to really, really experience that healing. But the truth is, those of us whom this has happened to, if we haven't done our healing, if we didn't do our healing work and so forth, we are literally walking around with that sign on our forehead that's saying, I'm vulnerable. I'm a potential target. We become parents, and these people who are trained predators, like their mindset, because this is what they do, they can actually see that in the most profound depth. I was amazed at, when the predator, he was sharing his view and how he assessed, the situation before he comes in, how he picks the women, that he chose and so forth. I was, I've always known, because this is something when I created Brothers in Arms, the healing modality for the men, I went into every aspect of being so I explored multiple states of consciousness, I explored myself, like, the part of me that was angry, that was extremely angry. And I wanted to do things to these people who hurt me, horrific things. It meant I had an imagination just as horrible as they did. I had an instinct just as horrific as they did. And where was my instinct coming from? And so this is how I moved through that inner work process. And what I want to share is, put yourself, if you really want to experience true forgiveness, just to summarize, because again, I can talk about this all day, put yourself in that person's shoe, right? The person who did that, and ask that beautiful question. What is it that must have happened in this person's life to have caused them to act this way, to have done what they did? Right? And how does what is it, how do I feel? Allow yourself to feel those feelings and journal. For this depth of work, you have to have your journal with you, and do it, during meditation, and after meditation, you journal, right? That would be my suggestion. But again, remember the formula. Understanding is the key. Understanding, when you ask that question, it allows you to put yourself in that person's shoe and journey through their reality as them, without any of your egoic state of mind interpretation of, what you think they should do and shouldn't do and all of that. If you're thinking that way, or you're thinking angry, and those angry thoughts are, causing you to judge them, then you're not deep enough. You haven't gone deep enough, and you're not in that state where you're, truly in that meditative state, that coherent state where you could see with greater clarity, in order to bring forth that understanding. Understanding is a natural arising that occurs. And when I experienced my first big understanding, that was my first sighting, saying this very humbly, of the Buddha, actually. And he's been with me ever since, the different Buddhas. But that was my biggest big breakthrough. And I was still living in the shelter thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. How am I going to even do this? And, in 2017, I successfully launched Brothers in Arms, Building Better Lives for Men. And, that was the beginning. I call that whole thing the very beginning of my journey, because I was still very young in the journey. And that's all I wanted to share for now. Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Francesca.
Thank you.
Sorry about your experiences that you've gone through.
It's okay. Thank you. I'm so eternally grateful grateful for those experiences. Like, oh my God, if it wasn't for those experiences, Poonam and everybody is listening, whoever is listening, I wouldn't have been on this journey. I wouldn't have evolved at and experienced the depth of evolution and that I've experienced from this journey, you know. Yeah, I'm overflowing with gratitude. And my parents, they, you know, it's true what they say in Buddhism, our parents are the original Buddhas. They provided enough in that regards for me so that it equipped me with what I needed to do this work at this depth so that I can evolve. So, you know, these, what we refer to as dark experiences or, you know, and so forth, they're actually blessings in disguises at the end because, you know, here I am. So thank you. Thank you. I'm eternally grateful. And I thank God for all of it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So thank you.
So one of the things that along the same lines, what arose for me was this is a video that I had shared maybe a few months back on forgiveness by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has one single video where he's talking about this woman who is similar to what Francesca was saying, a woman who's raped by 3 or 4 men, and she is having the hardest time. Like she has all kinds of resentment, all kinds of anger because of it. She has like some kind of she hasn't slept well, she has MS, she has maybe fibromyalgia, all kinds of chronic illnesses, right? Because of the non-forgiveness. And she goes through Dr. Joe Dispenza's 7-day retreat. And during one of the meditations, she achieves the, you know, the pineal gland rises and in one of her mystical experiences, what she hears the divine tell her is, I sent you 3 angels in disguise to bring you to this point where you have this experience. Right? So all these people, like my mother is an angel in disguise. My grandmother is an angel in disguise. Because of, if it were not for those experiences, we would not be here. So the gratitude and appreciation for what they did. Yeah, as a 3-year-old, we may think, oh, I hateful thoughts and resentful thoughts. And as a 6-year-old, you may think hateful and resentful thoughts, and 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10. But now, and that is what spiritual transformation is about, that all that experience of the past brought me to this point, right? Where I have been able to afford Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreat. And I now know what it is to be in brain and heart coherence. And I can get to the point of coherence where I can send healing energies to other people. I mean, what a privilege, what an honor and a privilege, right? To give life to another's life constantly, over and over and over and over again, to get that capability, right? It's a privilege of a lifetime. What else do we need? That's following our bliss, as Joseph Campbell says, right? Nothing else is needed. So look at that part, I would say to this person, that if that person was abusive and something happened, got separated or whatever they did and they left, right? It's not abusive. It's bringing you to that spiritual truth of who you essentially are, right? It's taking you to the higher, so that person was your spiritual teacher in a form. So grateful for it. So Patricia was saying something. You were going to say something, Caesar?
No, I was just going to say it's the common theme, you know, the hardest things that we've all been through on the panel, and pretty much speaking for everybody, even outside the panel, them are our greatest lessons, you know, are the hardest, the darkest ones, the ones that cause us to suffer so much. And if we don't give back in the way that we do, so selflessly, excuse me, then what good was it all for? You know, then it kind of is just for naught, then we just wither through this life. And so yeah, that makes it all worth it. It was well said by everybody.
Beautiful. And the fact that you made that Freudian slip of saying selfishly, that means this person is still stuck in their energy center 1, 2, and 3, the survival, the energy centers of fight and flight, the hormones of stress, right? Because they're labeling somebody, oh, this is abusive, and then do I need to forgive them or not? It's like forgiveness. Eckhart in The Power of Now ends Power of Now with forgiveness is a term that has been used for 2,000 years, but nobody has really understood it. I'm paraphrasing it. He says, you have to come to a point to know there's nothing to forgive. Nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness, neither could they act beyond their level, which is what April was talking about, that now I understand what I have complete understanding from my grandmother's behaviors, how my mother got that conditioned pattern, and she repeated it. People are biological automatons, right? They just repeat another generation's patterns. So they must generationally be that abusive pattern in that person, and that is what it is. They acted out their conditioned pattern. You have to let it go, right? Francesca?
Can I say one
Sure.
thing just very, very quickly? It's very important when we do that self-examination and we're looking at that person's journey, through, from our eyes without judgment. It's also very important that we look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what if I was that person? What if I was, if you, so for example, put yourself in their shoes and then ask yourself, if I were wearing that person's shoe and I had this, life experiences that they had, what would I do in that situation? It's very, very important to ask yourself that question, because that question, again, it's like another Pandora's box. It opens up when you're truly looking at yourself from that depth, it opens up all of the areas within you. So like when the Kundalini energy is rising and when it goes this way and this way, into the pain body, it opens up all those areas within you. Because for me, I remember I came face to face with the fact that, oh my goodness, if somebody touched Charlotte, what I would do to that person, or if, this was my experience, this is how I would defend myself, because we're wired, to protect ourselves and so forth. And this is why I say things like we're all wired the same, because at the very foundation, we all are. And that's all I wanted to share is to make sure you do that self-examination process, because when you ask yourself that question, it allows you to go really, really deep within your own self and explore all the faces of, I say all the faces, all the heads on the Kali necklace. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, to add to. Yeah.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Caesar. Patricia, you were asking a question, and did you want to add something? Thank you.
Hello, hi. Yes, definitely. Forgiveness is a big topic. It's fascinating because each one of us has a very different take, because each one of us has something, some of us lots to forgive. And I think it was almost shocking for me, mind-blowing, when I read in Power of Now, exactly what you just said, that it's like when Eckhart says, when you realize that no one can act beyond their level of consciousness, there's really nothing to forgive. I was so stuck with this because I was carrying such a baggage. And since I was teenager, I was defending my dad, who was very abusive to everyone. And we didn't know at this point that he is bipolar. was not diagnosed yet, that why? I was actually almost his like advocate, but I carried the worst thing to forgive him, and I couldn't. So I almost like pretended on the outset that I understand, and I had all the arguments, but it didn't help me with forgiveness. So whatever Francesca was saying and what helped her, it didn't work for me. I had in my mind all the arguments why he behaved the way he did, but it didn't help me unload, the emotional pain body. So, and I don't think that it was one thing for me that did it. It was maybe just combination of a lot of things. It was doing some exercises, actually saying I forgive you, and then seeing how it felt, because I did so many things. And at some point I was talking with my friend and I was bringing this up again, and she said, oh, I thought you forgave your father you told me all this. And I said, I did. And she said to me, well, if you forgave him, you wouldn't have been talking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I realized that it was, again, another concept, but I was still carrying because my victim identity was what I was attached to. So I needed to have someone, and that level that I thought to myself that I already forgave, but I was still attached to it. Look at me, I was still a victim. So yeah, examining it, trying to feel empathy, it did not help me at all in my journey. I did an exercise that I had with my career coaching, actually, something about, it's a meditation, but you also write on a piece of paper, like you make a circle with that on top, you put the name of the person that you are willing. You have to be willing first, because sometimes you're not ready, but at least you're willing, and you write the name, and then every single thing that comes out of you, what you blaming them for. So you actually, this is like self-inquire, what you holding in, what the concept and everything, the energy, put it on a piece of paper, and then you hold it on your lap, and then you closing your eyes and you imagine that person walking and sitting in front of you in the chair. And then, like looking at the person and saying, I forgive you. And so it's like a whole thing. And then at the end, seeing them walking away, and they're like, there's change of the face and stuff. And then you actually, after you open your eyes, you tear that piece of paper in completely, like as many pieces you can, burn it, whatever. So there is a physical element, and you mentally say that you will not use any of those no more. So you become a new person. So if in the future, it's kind of a little bit something like Joe Dispenza, I think, that new identity, that if something like this comes out, that you want to blame them for something, or, they did to me, that you can't, because you at that moment like said to yourself, that's it. I forgave him. I'm done. I'm ready to be a new person. It's so important but so I did that because I felt like I needed to do this. And I started with my father, then I went through my mother, I went through my boss, the ex-boss, I went through my husband. I was coming up with, so I didn't even know how many people I had to forgive. And I was still on that. And I remember my coach said, Patricia, you did not forgive one more person. And in that moment, when she said that, we both say myself. So that was like, so I went through this, but I didn't know if that's what, the exercise. That's why I ask if any of you actually do a specific exercise that is like part meditation, part visualization, and something physical to actually mentally, I don't know, but I needed this, I think. And then I heard Marianne Williamson recently said on one of her YouTube videos, was saying that ultimately every lesson in life is a lesson in forgiveness, because our purpose is to be happy, to reach happiness, to that state. And we can only do it through compassion, unconditional love, and forgiveness. So, and she was also talking about a lady that sent her a letter that was abused, was raped, and there was like few of other, unfortunately, a lot of every statistically in United States, every fourth woman is some kind of violated in sexually. So we as a gender have a lot of to do about this. But she said that to realize that your spirit, your soul was not abused, that was your physical part, and it was out of that mental ego sickness almost that the other person was in and dragged you in it. And it's a horrible thing that happened, but it didn't happen to your spirit. Your consciousness, what you really are, was not abused. So that, like, putting yourself there helps you.
But
stop.
knowing that, does that stop you from feeling the victim identity? Knowing that, does it make you feel that I've forgiven the other person?
It's
So,
whatever
one of the,
works. I just don't know. It's you still. I don't know where it happens. When it happens once you change your identity, like what Joe Dispenza, those exercises helping you came out of that energy that is very low to the higher energy vibration, that you are not being, dragged down, and forgiveness is higher on the.
so all these things,
Gratitude.
right? All these things that people say, some of the psychiatrists also use like some kind of techniques to change a person. In one of his talks, Dr. Joe says, knowing that that you had this kind of ancestry, did that change your behavior? Change you? Knowing that you were born in the wrong planet grade, Mercury was in retrograde, did that change you? Knowing that your psychiatrist said that so and so incident happened, did that change you? No.
I'm not understanding
Because-
your question.
So knowing that forgiveness implies that you realize that your radiant essence was not touched, your spirit was not touched, does that change you? Does your victim identity go away? Knowing that by words, just by words, reading the words that even Eckhart says the same thing, right? Forgiveness is a term that has been used for 2000 years. We need to realize that our radiant essence was never touched, right?
But it's certain
Neither, but
pointers.
do we know what? So once we know that the radiant essence was not touched, are we free? Have we forgiven the other person? Have you stopped feeling resentment? Have you stopped feeling anger? Have you stopped feeling jealousy? Have you stopped feeling less than? Did that happen? So one of the things he says, Dr. Joe says, is, so if you're lying in your chair, you have popcorn on the left side, you have a laptop here, and you're saying, oh, I need to change. I need to start changing tomorrow. What is the signal you're sending your cognitive body? Relax. He's not going to change. He doesn't want to change. Relax. That's pish posh. That's your body going to say. So who is reminding you of all those emotions? The emotions are in the body. That's the tip I gave in day number 1 and tip day 1, 2, or 3. One of those 3 days had that tip that we need to recondition our body, that the memory is stored in the body. The memory of that emotion, the memory of the victim identity is stored in energy centers 1, 2, and 3, right? We know that energy center 2 is where guilt and shame is stored.
Forgiveness is not the emotion, it's an action, right?
No, if forgiveness is
It's
about
realization. What
forgiveness
is forgiveness then? It's not an emotion, because emotion is the ones that I have to let go of. Or like if I have anger, or if I feel fear, or if there is resentment toward that person. So it's a lot of negative low emotions. I can't just say I forgive you and they disappear.
just imagine forgiveness is about knowing that your radiant essence was never touched. If you didn't get in touch with your radiant essence, how are you going to know that your radiant essence was not touched?
So it's really exercise. So there's no exercising presence. I mean, forgiveness, you just need to exercise your presence, because the more you're in touch with your true essence, which is the present moment, then the forgiveness or the emotions, the other
There's
ones,
no need to
will just
forgive.
go away, because
There's no
they're
need
not.
to forgive.
Yeah.
We come to the conclusion there's no exercise needed, there's no manipulation. So that's why some of the things that Tony Robbins does, they're momentary things. They momentarily change your action, right? Body and action. But if you don't keep repeating that action, make it a habit, repetition is the mother of skill, you will not put it in your body, right? And that's why my tip between 1, 2, and 3 was, that's why Dr. Joe has his special breath work. And I would strongly recommend, if anybody wants to release their emotions, learn it from Becoming Supernatural. If you don't want to go to anything expensive, learn from Becoming Supernatural, because he goes into the depths of how do you, it's like, it's the perineum, like lifting up the perineum, the lower abdomen, the upper abdomen, then you breathe in one shot up to the pineal gland, right? And then you press up against those crystals. That creates a certain energy field, that electromagnetic field, right? And that is what pulls the emotions out of the body. You have to recondition your body. The breath work is the most important out of his whole meditation. That's why when you start going, the lower meditations don't have breath work, but then when you go to Blessings of the Energy Center 3, 4, 5, and 6, then starts the breath work, where he starts to get you out of the body, because it's about reconditioning the body to a new mind. Because the
Right,
body
so
will pull us.
For you, with your mom, was it in one specific event, or that you reached a certain level of presence power that everything just dissolved by itself? Right?
Presence power. And it started with the 2006 of forgiveness of this other person, the act of forgiveness, action of forgiveness. Even though society was telling me, my coworkers were telling me, no, you should sue the company, you should take him, go to HR and all that, right? Even though they were saying that, I was like, no, I'm already in the middle of a separation and divorce. I will not get embroiled. I don't need another negativity, right? Because I feel, just like Eckhart says, right? The legal system is not conscious. It's not a conscious act.
It will just feed the fight, right?
Exactly. It's not a conscious act. So I was like, I don't want to be embroiled in this legal system mumbo jumbo. And I was like, let it go, let it go. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm going to forgive. But then I started healing. And then I started looking at spiritual work. And I started looking at Louise L. Hay and Dr. Wayne Dyer and all that. And finally, it led me to Eckhart. So it was a beautiful path.
This is also, I have a question to April still, maybe after Ken speaks,
Okay.
that how does forgiveness plays in the soul contract? So, right, because if people in our lives, we had a contract with them to come here and do exactly what needed to happen. So we could learn our lessons. Forgiveness is forgiveness step or part of the contract, or it's not necessary, because if you realize that you had the contract with them, they did their contract. So there's nothing to forgive because it was part of the deal. So being grateful, what Francesca was talking about a little bit, understands, like being grateful for those lessons, because in a sense, that's what we signed up for, and they played their role, even though on the human level, it's kind of hard, it's like, because some terrible things are happening, even right now in Ukraine. It's my mom just told me today, I was like, I don't almost want to know, because, it's, so that's why you have to be bigger.
What did your mom say? What did your mom say?
Not that the Russian soldiers are being very brutal and they're, raping children and stuff. And it's a war. It's a true war. And I learned through history that when Poland was under war, that's what was happening to our land. So it's still almost so close to the border, and it's reliving, the brutality. And it's so hard to understand that this is happening in 21st century. When we have incredible technologies.
But that's a signature pattern that exists in society for how many thousands of years, right? Pedophilia, just like Francesca was saying, exists in society. It's a pattern. It's a conditioned pattern. And if that person has not questioned their pattern, if they're just acting out their conditioned patterns, then they will do their program, right? And like Eckhart says, you have dehumanized the other by labeling them, that's my enemy. So once you dehumanize a child and the other, how are you going to have the empathy and compassion that I'm doing something to a child?
Right.
The child is not a child, it's an enemy.
Right.
Right. And I need to dominate. That's what the programming of the military may be. I need to program this. The programming may be that I need to dominate over this person. I'm going to go to April quick after Ken speaks. So Ken, you want to say something, Ken? And then we can go to April about this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. How does one work on forgiveness? To me, you don't work on it. And I think that there is already, if I work on it, it automatically will go back into your head. And just thinking of the inner child and thinking of adults, a lot of these programmings, unconscious programmings, started when we were children, very, very young. So the development was never fully developed. And growing up, and what we're doing is many people in many situations is we're reinforcing unforgiveness. And so with our emotions and being really young, we don't have a chance to get angry. We don't have a chance to fully feel because we're in shock. And we're not even allowed to actually express ourselves. We're not being heard, we're not being seen, and we're not being loved. So a lot of that programming needed the love to fully develop. So it's something where, for me, forgiveness is something that I had to learn. And for a long, long time, it was like there was no way I was going to forgive for certain things happening. And then realizing the main person, like Patricia said, I was always told, you got to forgive your mother, you got to forgive your father, you got to forgive this one, this one, this one. And I did not ever know that doing this work was an inside job. All the answers are inside of me. I had to develop that, and I had to surrender, change, and shift my perception on everything. It's like people say, what do you have to change to heal? And the answer is everything. Your thinking, your emotions. Many people are not even had a spiritual awakening or even understand what that really means. To them, they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to think about it. So all this is really a process, and you have to fall flat on your face. You have to really hit a bottom. Usually the first real big one somewhere along in your life where you feel like you're either going to die or something's going to shift. And then that there, to me, starts the momentum of the spiritual awakening, or something's different. So it's something where that momentum will continue. And just as we've said many times, our addiction is still inside of us. And many people think, oh, I'm not addicted to that certain substance or certain situation anymore. And then lo and behold, the addiction just changed form. It just jumped and went on to something else. And it's a continuation. It's called maintenance on working on yourself. And the thing that I had to do was I had to realize that there was something greater than myself. And I had to really believe that. And until that happened, I was not going to forgive. So I could hear other people saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. But my programming would say is, I really don't understand it because there's something wrong with me. So there were certain lessons, certain attachments that I had to really see or understand, let go of. And then that's when shifting started. And once I realized that there was something greater than me, or there was things happening that I know that's not me, and that's not from a human, that's when I started letting go without even realizing it. So the shift, being around like-minded people, will actually help me. It's like we're rubbing off, because I was wrong energy from my family of origin from the first place. And then when I started to really do the work, I had to commit myself. I had to really realize, how bad do I want this? And if I really don't want it bad enough, okay, well, go out and get some more pain and suffering, because you still haven't hit a bottom yet. So really learning this. And then the hardest person, I had to forgive myself, because I really thought I was a piece of baloney. I thought I was unworthy. And so until I started to shift that, then opening my heart, getting out of my head, and then working a process, because after a while, our toolbox starts to fill up. We start realizing that we can change, but we have to be able to really surrender ourselves and to let go of so many attachments and understand what attachments are. So, and sometimes I can literally say I went through certain things literally hundreds and hundreds of times. And each time it came around, I would go, okay, there's something about this I need to see. And if I've been surrendering, if I've been praying, if I've been meditating, then I'm able to say, okay, there's forgiveness on that also. And just like Patricia had said, there's forgiveness with everything. And so as we forgive, we have more of a clean slate. And that's how we fill up our toolbox. We can't just flick our fingers or just say, okay, where's the magic pill? There isn't. We have to keep doing the work. And then I have to not prove myself, but I have to honor myself to a higher power and realize that there is this unconscious energy that is there to help me. And I'm realizing that God isn't a person, a place, or a thing. It's everything. It is a frequency. And then realizing we are energy. So when I can really let go of that and understand it, it just brings me to another level. And there's many, many different levels. The more work we do, the more it gets revealed. And so what it is, but I have to do the work and I have to give it away. I have to understand what being in service is. So this, and how important it is to make amends to people and realize I made a mistake. And there is a process in doing all this. And to me, it's so much in the 12 steps where there's a lot of steps and their progression. And you work one step, it leads you to another step, to another step. And that's where the healing perpetuates itself. And it helps us to understand things that we can't figure out. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Was forgiveness part of those 12 steps?
Well, you get to it because you got to pass, I call it physical self. You have to realize that all that anger and all that frustration, all that stuff that keeps you spinning and repeating the same behaviors, then after a while you go, this isn't working for me. And then and for me to actually do a fourth, what they call a fourth step, is you write everything down of all the people you hurt. But it was so hard to do that because I had to admit to myself that I was a bad person, which I believed that my whole life anyway. So in order for me to go into that pain, I had to really surrender and write everything down. Now, understanding that, Patricia, I've forgiven myself.
Right.
Okay, now I love myself. I made the mistakes and I'm realizing this is now how God is using me. And that's actually the last step. Now that we've learned all the steps, now we can be in service because we've been through those situations. And I realized that I couldn't have done anything any different. My humanness came in to learn those lessons that was unconscious to get to a higher level of consciousness. And so now I'm loving my shadow. I'm loving all those aspects that I didn't want to see, and realizing that my shadow is what I needed to love.
So you're blessing your past now for the last.
Now it's unbelievable. I feel so blessed. I feel so fortunate. And I have so much gratitude, and realizing now, honestly, there are no problems. No solutions. Okay. Okay. But if I keep saying there is a problem, then what am I feeding?
Right.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
What end of the stick are you picking up?
That's
as
it.
Caesar would
It's the
say?
same analogy. You ever hear about the two wolves? You know, and so it's like, which wolf you're going to feed? The one that has done everything wrong, and usually the person who makes more mistakes, gets in trouble, does all this drama and everything else, they're getting more attention than other people. So a lot of people are actually doing things knowing it's not the correct way until they start changing that. But all it is, we have to get to a point where I can't live like this anymore. There has to be another way. And then once we recognize that, once we start getting the feeling that we're going the wrong way, then we can let go and surrender and get back on, I call the God beam, much faster. And everything around me now, listen to everybody. It's like, it's amazing. It's all pieces of this, I'm going to call the spiritual puzzle, not the human puzzle. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. What I loved was you said, how did you phrase it? You said, if you don't want to change, go get yourself some more pain and suffering. Go get yourself some more pain and suffering. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we go to April, one of the things I wanted to tell Patricia is when we talk about, when we talk about brutality, right? Look how did we feed that brutality? Like, just like Dr. Joe says, our personality is co-creating that personal reality. So just imagine that whole if you look at that masses there, what is their personality feeling at that point in time? They're in sheer terror, sheer fear. I don't know, is Patricia frozen? Patricia, did you get what I was saying? You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, you're on mute, Patricia.
So what I was saying is as Dr. Joe says, right? What is true, and that is what nature of personal reality is, right? By set, that each person is co-creating their personal reality. So when you say there's brutality, what is the energy field of the masses on whom the brutality is being inflicted? Don't they have the vibrational energy of terror, the
Right.
vibrational energy of fear? And then all the people in Poland are feeding that same vibrational energy by feeling the same terror, feeling the same fear, and their pain bodies are experiencing, okay, I'm going to recycle this, right? I can feel it years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it happened to me. So
Right.
they're reliving that story, that victim story,
Right.
and all the more that pain body. So what is attracting that? Right? So April is back. I'll hand it over. So do you understand the perfection of why it is happening? So
Yeah.
the way to heal it is all of us need to heal our pain body. We need to heal our terror. We need to heal our fear. There's a Rupert Spira video where a woman in Ukraine talks about all this fear. And Rupert says, do you understand getting into that shared being? You're being very fearless. That can you get to that shared being? And she had a smile at the end, right? All of them need to get to their shared being so that they can feel that fearlessness and the courage instead of feeling the terror,
Right.
right? So that is the whole thing. April, you want to respond to Patricia? Thank you.
So in order to get to Poonam's state, she's saying, I wasn't really on the spiritual journey and I just decided to do this forgiveness. And I think there's a point in our lives where we get tired of the drama, we get tired of the chaos, we just like, you know what, it's just not worth it for me. I much rather have inner peace. But your question is, like, you're wanting to know, how do you get to forgiveness? How you,
No, the question was what came out for me is how does forgiveness fit into the soul contract?
oh
If
yeah.
it's part of it,
So-
or it's not necessary.
Well,
once-
you still have to learn forgiveness in this lifetime. It is still something that people have to learn. You have to learn how to forgive. That is one of the frequent lessons of learning how to have unconditional love for somebody else who has done something for you. One of the ways actually to get there is to understand that it was part of your soul contract. To understand that this person played that role out perfectly for you. That's one of the ways to get to forgiveness. That's the soul level. So on the human level, I can understand that my dad was severely abused as a child. He was very small and he was severely abused. He's now a very large man and has been very large since the Marines, but he wasn't always that way. So I can understand it on the human perspective, and I can have unconditional love and compassion and understanding for him as to why he was so angry. I get it. Then when you're going to the soul level, you look at it and you go, oh, I see. So you had to be abusive because that was putting me in psychic ability training 101. Sweet. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Because I now am super psychic because I constantly had to gauge where your anger was at. So that's my lesson was, oh, you're going to be a psychic medium and you're going to heal other people, but we need you to be really good at it. So we're going to start when you're a kid. And we're going to make your dad abusive because you're going to need to start training real young. So now I can have, and actually Poonam said that is the title of my book that I have like wrote but not published. It's called Angels in Disguise. That is the title of the book. She named it earlier. So anybody want to edit my book? You're welcome to. That is the name of my book. It's been the name of my book. I've had that book for years now that I wrote, and that's why it's called that. It's because I can have that forgiveness, and then I can let go of all of that pain, all that resentment, all that anger, because I can now see the grander plan, the soul plan. Now I can really have peace with it all. Okay.
So that is a very good answer to adding to the original question of today's session, that, you know, how to work on forgiveness if we still are in that abusive situation. So once we get there, wouldn't the situation change? Because
well, it depends. It doesn't always change. Like the current situation, you know, in the other country, we can't say that if there was a large number of us that did meditation, healing, prayer, and produce forgiveness, probably we could change that scenario. However, that doesn't mean that you producing forgiveness is going to stop an entire war, or it's going to stop an entire person. But again, we can't forget the butterfly effect, to where, remember I said that lady said, Source told her, your hateful thoughts are going to her. She's not hearing them, but she's feeling them. So you can energetically create change. And, you know, when you project that energy. So the thing is not really to go into a situation to change the situation. Go in and change the energy and let the energy change the situation. Project that energy.
So we can only do that if we are present in the moment, right? So we're not feeding.
You have to learn to have presence power and to be connected to source, with the idea that you are on a soul journey. It is all perfectly planned. It is okay. It doesn't mean the things that we experienced were fun. They weren't painful. You didn't cry. But when you can get to that space where you can integrate, is where Poonam's at. She's at integration stage. She's integrated all those events into, I get it. But that integration doesn't always happen instantly. That's a practice that she has honed. She's honed in on that, of how to say, you know what, okay, I'm just gonna let it go. And I know that it's like I chose it. But that's not something that's something you work on as a soul, because you have to remember you're still a human with human emotions. So it's not an instant process. If you're still in the human stages where you need that, and many people do, then you can start with some of the techniques that I message you. Take an angel back to that space. Take your grandma back to that space. Take your spirit animal back to that space, and give that person, because that person is still there in that timeline, wounded. And you have to heal that person on that timeline, because otherwise they're still there. And give them healing,
Right.
right?
Yeah, you're very helpful. I remember all those meditations that you showed during workshops. So yeah, you're right.
So what I did when I was a child, I was there, where I really know, like, the sadness and all that set in was when I was between, I was about 5. So what I did was I took an archangel back to that house, to that yard, and in that backyard there was a wood swing. And we went to the back swing and I just laid my head on her lap and we just swing. We just on the swing, just laid there. And I did that many, many times when I was on my healing journey to heal that space. So it's something you can do like that.
Mm.
It's just an example.
I think that's called what, like timeline healing or something.
Childhood, inner childhood, yeah. Or it can be when you're an adult, it could be yesterday. So it's a process of learning how to get to Poonam stage, where you don't allow these daily interactions to
Mhm.
really hurt you in that manner, because you see them from the higher presence, the higher soul perspective.
And because you are in the present moment, you choose not to go there. You just choose to let
It's
go.
not, I don't know if it's a you choose not to go there, it's that you choose the higher understanding. You choose to see it from a higher perspective. So from God's perspective, from soul's perspective, it's all it's a perfect plan.
Mm.
It's perfectly happening for you, because this is going to make you grow at some point. At some point, this is going to be another thing in history, which I would hope is the last, probably not, that we stop and we go, stop doing this. Stop doing this. And the whole planet as a whole says, we have to stop doing this and be better. We have to start loving people. And unfortunately, it takes these giant events to get us there.
My question for myself, Patricia, is like, if I'm looking at somebody who's doing something like brutality towards a child, it's like they're stuck in energy center 1, right? Their sexual energy. It's like, so did I heal my sexual energy?
Mm.
Am I looking at a man and am I attracted to that man? Or leave alone, that's energy center 1 is about consumption, right? About hedonistic activity, as Eckhart would call it. So it's like about eating all kinds of decadent foods. Have I healed that? Have I healed like wanting the most decadent foods? Have I healed? So before we cast that stone saying, oh, these Russians, they are brutal. Am I brutal?
Mm.
If I'm brutal,
Judgment, because
then
of
how am I
judgment.
casting, how am I casting a stone and saying, these people are brutal, I'm brutal? Am I not stuck in that same energy center?
Mm.
Right?
Wow.
Wanting all
Mhm.
these, wanting a bigger car or a bigger home, or what about the wanting better job? Like I want a $300,000 paying job. Am I not hedonistic? Am I not brutal in that sense?
The first energy center is about security too. It's about safety, security.
I think that's
Huge.
too.
It's it is part of 2 also, but it's 1 too. It's also
1, 2.
1. Yeah.
I heard also that it's that root chakra, a family of origin too, right? The family of
Could be.
origin.
It's passion. So what Dr. Joe in Blessings of the Energy Center, I think it's 6, he reprograms it to feel your passion. So reverse it, right? Take the 1 and reverse it to what am I passionate? I'm passionate about this group. I'm passionate about, thank you so much, April. You've been incredibly amazing. Much love. Thank you.
April.
Good night.
You. Good to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Heal well. I'll send you healing prayers. So it's about passion, right? So he has a meditation where he takes each of the energy centers, like he'd say heart is creative, so feel your creation. Throat is about speaking your truth. Are you experiencing that? Are you experiencing, when you focus in energy center 5, are you experiencing you're speaking the truth? So he reprograms us, right? We are not learning to be hedonistic. We are learning, okay, we can take the same energy center and use that passion, convert it to creative. And there's a lot of meditations where he goes, go 1, 4, 6, 8, 1, 4, 6, 8. That's so that you can take it and turn it into creative power instead of just all this, let me devour, the egoic wanting that Eckhart talks about, right? Let me eat this, or let me go gaming, gambling, alcohol, whatever I want next glass, another shot. You're constantly having shot after shot at a bar. Why the hedonistic? Do you really need all that alcohol and worsen your liver? Right. So we're getting late. I know all of you are on the East Coast, so I will close this. It was an incredibly amazing session, as always. Thank you so much, Caesar and Ken and Patricia, April.
Thank you.
And I know Dennis was online and Francesca. Much love, many blessings. We will meet again. We are going to meet this Friday, Wednesday, right? Before Thanksgiving. Are y'all going to be able to make it?
Yes.
Y'all are, I'm infinitely grateful. Okay, I'll schedule one for this coming Wednesday. Okay?
Please do. We have so much things to be grateful for, right, Caesar?
Okay, we'll talk about it next week. Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Many blessings.